I'm Ellen Volpe, and this is Opportunity Calls. This week, we have Jeff Goldberg of Jeff Goldberg Associates, Executive Coach, Sales Training, and Outsourced Sales Management. Thanks, Jeff, for coming today. I'm so excited to have you.
And I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me on.
I was wondering if you could take a few minutes and share with the audience your background.
Are we starting from birth?
That would be a good place. Where were you born?
I was born in Chicago, moved to New York when I was 17 in the middle of my junior year because my father moved here for business, so we all came with him. I fell in love with New York. It was what I had seen all my life in the movies and on TV and in books, and I still remember driving here and being in New Jersey and seeing the skyline of New York and going, oh my God, I can't believe we're in the place that I've seen all these years. And they unfortunately hated it and moved back to Chicago 3 years later, but I've stayed almost the whole time. Went to college in the city at Baruch College, City University of New York, had no direction whatsoever. And my father, my stepfather, and both of my grandfathers were career salespeople. And I swore I will never, ever make the mistake of going into sales. Well, I got a job while I was in school at a part-time job at a furniture store about a block away from the school, being the office manager, doing ordering and customer service and things like that. And one day, the owner of the company said, hey, Jeff, you need to go sell those people because one of our salespeople hadn't shown up. And I said, I don't know how to sell. And he said, smile a lot, follow them around, take notes on what they're looking for. And when they pick out some furniture that they like, come back and I'll give you the prices. That's selling. Well, it wasn't something I really took to, in my opinion. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but almost 48 years later, I'm not only still selling, I'm training salespeople how to sell.
What were some of the other sales positions you held?
Well, I sold Encyclopedia Britannica door-to-door for 8 years, as well as having a permanent display at the LaGuardia Airport where people were walking from the ticket counter to the gate. They would talk with me. I was recruited away from there to become the sales manager at a company called Institute for International Research that put on about 300 industrial conferences a year. And I built a sales team for them. I was a recruiter for about a year. And then I left that company and opened up my own recruiting firm. Did that for about 4 years and then shut that down. I was the national sales director at a company called Frost & Sullivan, where I built their sales team from 3 up to 45 people when they left. And eventually I went to work for a sales training company, which is where I learned the art and the skill of both selling and delivering sales training. And it turned out to be the job that I've been meant to do all my life. My coach doesn't like when I say this, but I do enjoy being the center of attention. I'm a natural entertainer. I've got a background in theater and stand-up comedy, so I love to be in front of an audience. And I truly love to help people. And I don't say that to be altruistic. I love getting paid for what I do, but I love helping people. And, you know, when somebody calls me or sends me an email and says, hey, Jeff, that thing you taught me, I closed a deal, or I got a promotion, or I was able to feed my family, or I help companies make more money, it's a truly gratifying feeling. So everything happens for a reason. I don't know what took me so long, but eventually I found the job that I was meant to do.
Fantastic. I love that story, and you certainly are good at what you do. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about selling in the age of COVID. I'm frequently asked, should I sell now? What should I say? I'm not comfortable making phone calls during this time. As you know, I am a fan of a man by the name of Jay Abraham, and I've been listening to him for many, many years. And Jay always speaks to a concept called the strategy of preeminence. And recently, his definition really has struck me because he speaks to the responsibility that one has and a moral obligation and a privilege to sell to as many people as we can, if in fact we have something that is of value. And I'm wondering today, in terms of the reluctance that I hear, whether or not you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I don't think I could say it any better than the great Jay Abraham. If you have a product or service that you truly believe in, and by the way, if you don't, you shouldn't be in sales at all, or you should be selling something different. But if you believe in what you're selling, then you owe it to your prospects to reach out to them and touch them and contact them and have conversations with them and help them, rather than sell them, help them choose to do business with you if it's right for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that said, there are going to be some things in this current environment, while we're still in the middle of the pandemic, when it might not be as easy as other times to reach out and touch someone if you don't have something that's very useful. I consider what I do incredibly useful. I help salespeople and sales organizations increase their sales. That's pretty useful right now. So I have no hesitation calling anybody from a CEO of a major corporation to an individual salesperson who might need coaching and saying, hey, I can help you grow your sales. So the answer is, if you believe in what you sell and you can do it well, then you owe it to people to do that. Now, when I say do it well, here's what I mean. You have to have empathy. You always do. But right now, it's even more important. And I think it's crucial for salespeople, no matter what they're selling, to understand that we're all freaking the F out right now. Mm. Some more than others. But we're at a time that, I'm 65 years old. I've never lived through anything like this. I lived through Vietnam. That wasn't like this. It's an insane, politically, things are crazy. Economically, things are crazy. And we've got a pandemic that is bringing us to our knees. So as salespeople, we need to understand that the person on the other end of the line probably has those same thoughts, or the other end of the Zoom call. They're worried. How am I going to do this? Am I going to be in business next week, next month, next year? How am I going to make it through this? And how is my family going to be okay? I mean, 200, I think, I forgot the number right now, but 220,000 plus people have already died. At my age, I don't sit and worry about it every day, but I worry about it more than my 18 or 19-year-old kids do. So I think we need to make sure that we understand that the people that we're selling to, even if they have a need or a want for what we've got, and we truly believe that we can help them, we better do it with empathy right now. How are things going for you? How has this affected you? How is this affecting your family? How can I best help you? And that goes to something else that I always believe, Ellen, whether it's during the pandemic, after the pandemic, before the pandemic, or any other time, your come from, and you can't see me because the camera's not going down there, but I'm pointing to my very ample belly right now, and I'm saying your come from had better be, how can I help you? I'm here to serve you, because sales is not a game of convincing or persuading or talking people into things. True salespeople who are really good at their jobs, they always come from service. Mm-hmm. And they're willing to say, in certain instances, you know what I've got for you isn't the right thing. Let me introduce you to somebody else. And if it is the right thing, then they're going to do everything they possibly can to make sure that the prospect makes the right choice for them, which is hopefully to do business with us.
I love that. So, Jeff, we were speaking in particular about salespeople being reluctant to pick up the phone these days. What I've been asked is, how can I do that? Everybody is suffering in some way, shape, or form. Can you speak to the conviction that a salesperson really has to have in order to actually break through that mindset?
Before we got onto this call, I was on LinkedIn, because I'm often on LinkedIn. I consider it the salesperson's best friend. And I was reading something written by a guy who I greatly respect, who I interviewed for my show recently. His name is Jason Bay. He's a young man, brilliant when it comes to prospecting. And what he said was, and I thought it was perfect, if you're waiting to like prospecting, you're going to be waiting a long time. Stop using it as an excuse. You're never going to like it. The thing that I always say, and one of the things I teach people to do is how to prospect, is I can never make you love prospecting, but what I can do is I can make you hate it a little bit less. And what Jason goes on to say is, it's kind of like going to the gym. And I wish I had thought of these words in this analogy, but that's what he did. He said, it's kind of like going to the gym. Most people don't really like going to the gym, but they know they need to pay the price. They need to eat right and work out and do things to be healthy. And it's the same thing with picking up the phone or sending an email or prospecting of any type, Ellen.
Right.
You've got to pay the price in order to get what you want. And you and I both know that Zig Ziglar said many years ago, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And that's the same thing here. Absolutely.
I also understand that you do not really like prospecting yourself.
Well, you know me way too well, my friend.
Yeah.
When you say I don't like prospecting, what you really mean is I don't like cold calling. It's my absolute favorite thing to teach. I really do love it, because I can teach you how to cold call today, and you can be on the phone tomorrow making appointments. Like, it's that quick. Whereas when I teach selling skills, it's going to take a little longer to implement everything I'm sharing with an audience or with a particular salesperson.
Right.
But no, I hate cold calling, and here's why. I want every call to go like this. So let's say I was calling you and you picked up the phone and you said ABA or Ellen Volpe or something. And I said, hey, Ellen, this is Jeff Goldberg from Jeff Goldberg and Associates. And you say, stop right there. I've heard about you. I know you're so damn good at what you do that you're going to get the appointment. And once I give you the appointment and you get out to my office or we get on a Zoom call, you're going to sell me. So why don't I just save us both some time and send you a check right now? Except most calls don't go that way, do they? So yeah, I don't like prospecting by phone. And I've worked very, very hard with the help of a lot of people to develop my business in such a way so that when I started out, I had a cold call a lot because it's still the quickest, most time-efficient and cost-effective way to fill up your calendar with appointments when you don't have any. But I've worked very hard to learn things like, networking from an expert like you, so that I could rely on that more and have to rely on cold calling less. And now I'm at the point where I only pick up the phone to cold call once a month, maybe for 15 or 20 minutes, just to make sure that what I'm teaching others is still working. But I think I've said this to you before. I'd rather live in my car before I would want to pick up the phone and say, hey, need any sales training or coaching today? Don't want to do it. However, that said, there are lots of other ways to prospect. And my mentor in this business took me aside very early on in the sales training career and said, look, man, one of the most important things we teach at this company is cold calling. We're known for teaching people how to cold call, but you don't want to do it. You got to do something. What are you going to do? And I said, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, what do you like? And I said, what I like? I like standing in front of an audience and speaking to people. And he said brilliantly, go book a bunch of speeches. The National Speakers Association says 1 out of every 10 people in every audience will probably have a need or a want for what you've got. And so I booked a lot of free speeches and got business that way. I've become good at networking, not as good as you, but I've become good at networking. I love LinkedIn. I love social media. I've formed my own Facebook group, the Sales Pro Network. So I've done lots and lots of things to avoid having to cold call. But for salespeople, for most salespeople, prospecting must be a part of every day. Consistency being the key. Find the things that you like doing. You know, I co-authored a book, Leverage Your Laziness, which is about focusing on the things that you like to do and are good at and finding somebody else to do the things that you aren't good at or don't like. So I don't like cold calling. Good. I've made it so that I never have to cold call again. But I do like using LinkedIn, and I do like coming to ABA every 2 weeks and having opportunity calls and doing all those things and creating relationships. And I still love speaking. It's still my favorite way to get business. So everybody, almost every salesperson needs to prospect unless you've got some kind of an organization which is feeding you leads. I haven't found one for me yet. But if that's the case, great. But if not, you need to prospect on a very consistent basis, because anytime you don't, somewhere down the line, you're going to have a gap where you just can't possibly get paid.
I'm Ellen Volpe, and this is Opportunity Calls, and we'll be right back.
American Business Associates is New York Metro's premier business development and networking association. To learn more about ABA, visit aba-ny.com.
Jeff, we recently had a conversation regarding value and the communication of what that means. And you said something to me that I've heard before, but just has stayed with me. And that is, if a prospect does not see value, they're never going to buy. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that now, because I also think that we make mistakes sometimes by focusing in on what we do and why it's important, but we are not necessarily focused on the right thing.
The first thing to understand is it's not about us. It's about them. It's about the prospect. And in sales, I often say I don't like cliches, but I seem to use a lot, so I guess maybe I do. There's an old phrase, it's an acronym called WIFM, W-I-I-F-M, and it stands for What's in it for me. And that's what your prospect is looking for. That's what my prospect is looking for. That's what everybody's prospect is looking for. Most salespeople make the mistake of making a presentation, thinking that it's all about the great presentation and your strong closing skills. And they'll walk in and say, hey, Ellen, let me tell you why Jeff Goldberg and Associates is the greatest training and coaching firm in the world. And then they throw up all over you. I call it throwing up on the customer's shoes, or it's also known as giving a product dump. It's ugly, an ugly picture. Nobody likes it, but that's what most salespeople do. When what they really should be doing is asking questions, lots and lots and lots of them, to uncover what somebody's doing, and then showing exactly what you said, the value that they bring to the table. Because prospects buy two things. The first thing is relationship. In almost every sale, and it's not every sale, but in almost every sale, people are buying from people, not necessarily products. Even a transactional sale, like you go to the store to buy Nikes. Why do people buy Jordans? Are Air Jordans better than every other Nike or every other sneaker? No, people associate Michael Jordan, this amazing basketball star, with the sneaker. So even then, it's about the relationship with Michael Jordan and the company Nike. But for most of us, we're not Nike, and we don't have a Michael Jordan on our team, although that would be lovely for all of us. It's about the relationship that we form, and it's both like and trust. And between the two, the trust is more important. If people trust you but don't like you as much, they may do business with you. If people like you but don't trust you, well, I can't imagine why they like you in that case, but they're probably not going to do business with you. And if it's between two salespeople with a fairly equal product or service and a fairly equal price, they're absolutely going to go with the person that they both like and trust. But we have got to be incredibly good at sharing the value of what we bring to the table for our prospect, because if the prospect does not see that, we're screwed. And it's on us, by the way. It's not on the prospect. We have to make sure they see it. And that boils down to the conversation between features and benefits. You know, we're always selling two things when we're selling. We're selling the features of what we have to offer and the benefits of what we have to offer. So, for example, one of the features I sell is sales training. Another one is one-on-one sales coaching or small group coaching. But nobody's looking for sales coaching from me, and nobody's looking for sales training from me. Everybody who comes to me, they're certainly not looking for my good looks. I know that's not the case. What they're looking for is increased sales. The people who pay me money to train their team or coach them one-on-one, they're looking for their sales to increase. There's no other reason. Am I a funny guy when I do it? Yeah, I'm pretty entertaining. Do I have a lot of knowledge? Yes, but it's not the sales training or the sales coaching. It's the end result that people are always looking for. And that's what you're speaking to when you say value. In sales, we call that the benefit. And salespeople had better understand that most of them focus on the features and spend very little time on the benefits, when really they should be mentioning features and spend a lot more time on the benefits. And the easiest way for any salesperson to do that is to talk about a feature and then follow that up with, and here's what that means for you, or, and here's how that helps you, or, and here's what that will do for you. Because whatever comes after those words is going to be the WIFM, the what's in it for them, the benefit, or, as you said, the value. If you can't sell value, I don't know what you're selling other than price. And if you sell on price, you die on price. And here's one other concept. Most salespeople and most customers believe that it's all about the price, but it's not. Almost ever. Now, I live in the real world, and I know that some people will cut you off at the knees for a penny, maybe a nickel, okay, a quarter. But for most people, it's not about that. If it was, we'd all be driving 1975 Honda Accords. And I say that because you can pick one up for $300. They run forever. They're comfortable. It's a great car. But there are still people who buy $90,000 Mercedes and $200,000 Lamborghinis or $50,000 Jeeps or whatever they're driving. And whenever I ask salespeople about that, you know, in a room of salespeople, I'll often say, you know, who's driving an expensive car? And there's always somebody who can't wait to raise their hand and tell me what they're driving. Yeah, what are you driving, Bob? Oh, I'm driving a Mercedes 550. Oh, a $90,000 car. Awesome. Why didn't you buy a $300 Honda Accord? Because you can pick one up used for that. And by the way, my $300 Honda Accord will take me to New York City just as quickly as your Lamborghini or your Mercedes 550, because you don't get to go 170 miles an hour on the Long Island Expressway. Why'd you do it? And Bob, or whoever's name I used in this example, always has great reasons. I like a new car. It's more reliable. I like the smell and the feel. It's hard to pick up the women in a used Honda Accord and much easier in the Mercedes. Whatever Bob's reasons are, my point is never, ever that Bob wasted $89,700 or whatever he did. what he saw was that much more value in owning the Mercedes. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that our prospects completely understand the value. Otherwise, we're lost.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll be right back after this short break.
You're watching Opportunity Calls with Ellen Volpe, presented by ABA, American Business Associates. To learn more about ABA, visit aba-ny.com.
So, Jeff, COVID actually has put a lot of pressure on business owners, from not knowing how much money they have to not knowing how much business they have, not knowing how many employees are willing to come back, not knowing whether or not they can come back. This really, I think, has put a pressure on the need for sales. And when I think about that in the world that we live in today, and the fact that money is so important, I think about the commoditization of any product or service. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that now regarding that value. I know in the segment before, we were talking about the value of a Honda as opposed to a Lamborghini. And I heard you with a very, very great example of what that means. But in the real world, in the real office, in the real, wee hours of the night or in the shower, what do you think that business owners are thinking about in terms of the commoditization and what they're charging and what they can charge and what they see for the future?
So I can't speak for every business owner, but I think that many of them are very concerned. And when business owners and salespeople get concerned about something like this, the first thing they tend to do is drop their price. I think that's a very bad idea. Now, again, I live in the real world and we have to be competitive, but we have to be able to clearly express to our clients, our prospects and future clients, hopefully, what makes us different. We have to know our own value and be able to clearly explain to someone in a way that they completely get it what makes us different, not necessarily what makes us better. I think it's reasonable for business owners to be concerned about the future. I think it's reasonable for them to be concerned about the prospect of doing business with people. It's harder to get in touch with people in some ways. And certainly it's reasonable to be concerned about the way they're doing business and consistently on a regular basis, taking a look at what am I doing? Is it still working? Do I need to try something else? But I always go to the foundational concepts. I always go back to the basics. In fact, when I work with companies year after year, eventually we get to the point where they'll ask me a question like, hey, Jeff, when are you going to teach my people the advanced stuff? And I always give them a wink and go, I'm going to teach them the advanced stuff when they start doing the foundational stuff that I've been teaching them for the last 3 years, because until you make them do it, there is no advanced stuff. And once you do that, we'll talk about the advanced stuff. And by the way, there really is no advanced stuff. I have no advanced training classes. It's always the foundation. And I always use this example, and you know me well, so you might laugh at this, but I always use football as an example. They play a game once a week, typically, football players. Well, what do you think they're doing all week long? Sitting around eating bonbons? No, they're not. That's an old phrase. I feel old just for saying bonbons. That's candy for those of you who don't know the phrase. But they're not sitting around all day eating bonbons and watching TV. They're at practice every single day. And what are they practicing? The basics. They're practicing the foundational concepts that they learn in their training camp, and they practice it over and over and over. So that's what I would suggest business owners need to do. They need to go back to the basics. They need to have a prospecting plan in place. They need to implement that plan, and they need to measure it. They need to be managing their salespeople, because I'll tell you this, and I don't mean to insult any salespeople who are watching this now or at a later date, but you're babies. And by the way, I say that knowing I'm a salesperson too. I'm a baby too. I want my little hand held. I want the good leads. You know, if you've seen Glengarry Glen Ross, don't give me those Patel leads. I want the good leads. And when I close a deal, I want you to shoot off fireworks. And when I come back and tell you, hey, boss, I blew one or I lost it, I want you to put your arms around me and tell me it's going to be okay. You better be managing your salespeople effectively, because the only salesperson that does not need an effective leader, and I don't mean tough boss, I mean an effective leader, is a superstar. And sadly, most salespeople are not, well, sadly for everybody else, not for me, most salespeople are not superstars. That's actually very good for me. So, for example, if you at your company wanted to hire me as a salesperson, the smartest thing you could do is say, hey, Jeff, I'm going to get out of your way and let you do what you do. Look, I often say I'm so good at selling that people pay me to teach them how to do it. So I am a superstar at sales. I was just born to do this. So the best thing you can do is get out of my way. But the average salesperson, the typical salesperson, hasn't been trained well and is not managed well. And they're what I call a plodder, Plodder. They kind of plod along. There's no energy there. There's not very much energy, at least. And they're not doing the things that they need to do every day. And quote is kind of off in the distance. Maybe once or twice a year they'll hit it, but not usually. And that person needs an effective manager. So in any organization that's struggling right now, if your salespeople are reporting directly to you, the owner of the company, you're probably making a mistake unless you know how to manage salespeople. Hire an outsourced sales manager like me or hire a professional sales manager internally, because your salespeople are the lifeblood of your business. You could have the greatest widget in the world, but unless you've got somebody who's going to sell it, unless you're doing internet marketing, you need some human beings, at least so far, to sell it until we get to the age where AI completely takes over. Companies and business owners need to understand is you better know who your customer is. You better develop an ideal client profile so that you know exactly what you're looking for, because if you haven't defined that, how are you going to find it? And then there needs to be a system for finding it, implement that, and do it consistently.
I love to do it consistently piece. Excellent.
Yeah, there's a lack of consistency with most salespeople, and also a lack of urgency. One of the things I tell my coaching clients is that I want you to work with focus, which means do one thing at a time. Multitasking is a myth. Anytime you try to do two things at once, both things are going to suffer. So focus on one thing at a time and then do it with velocity. Work as fast as you possibly can without being careless. Mm-hmm. And I always tell my coaching clients, work as if you're going to lose your job this Friday if you don't work with full speed and get something done. And most of us just don't. In sales, it's just the type of person that's attracted to sales. It's like, there's always tomorrow. Well, for most of us, there is a tomorrow, but you know what? The one thing you can't get back is time. You can almost always get back your health. You can almost always make more money, but you can't get back today. The half an hour that you and I are investing right now, we'll never get this back. The time that we didn't prospect this morning, we're never going to get that back either. So organizations and individual salespeople had better be working with urgency to find as many people as they possibly can who might have a need or a want for what they've got, and then do the sales process right. That's where I see a lot of problems, Ellen. Salespeople are typically not studiers. We typically don't go to college thinking, can't wait to graduate and go into sales. So we almost all fall into it by accident. Every time I go to my doctor, which thank the Lord is not that often. I'm a healthy guy. I go usually once a year, but he's always got books on his desk. He's my age. He's a highly experienced guy, but he's always got books on his desk. Any one of my lawyers, they've got books on their desks. Well, salespeople should too. Most studies show that the typical salesperson doesn't read a book, doesn't go to a seminar, workshop, doesn't watch a video. There's so much free information for salespeople. YouTube is filled with guys like me giving away information for free. LinkedIn is too. There's 1,000,001 highly qualified people. By the way, there's also people that you should not be paying attention to. But invest in yourself. Companies should invest in their team, and salespeople should invest in themselves if they want to take advantage of this horrible thing that we're going through, to make sure that they come out the other side and thrive.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. Such great input. I really always enjoy listening to you. It's always enlightening. And Jeff, I know you love music. I know it's in your heart. It seems like we all need a little more music these days. I was wondering if you would share your favorite band and maybe the favorite song.
That's an easy one for me. I'm a child of the 60s and 70s. I still like all the classic bands, and I've seen every single one of them except the one that I love the most, and that is John, Paul, George, and Ringo, the Beatles. I adore them. They changed my life. I learned how to play guitar because of them. My sense of humor is kind of like theirs. When I had hair, I actually used to wear it that way. I was a true fan of the Beatles, and it's hard to find a song that I don't like, although there are a few. But my favorite song of all times is "I Saw Her Standing There." It's not challenging. It's not difficult. It's just this basic progression, and it rocks out. Their manager, Brian Epstein, called it a barn burner. Let's play the barn burner. So the Beatles, for me, they're everything. In fact, I do a program called Conversational Selling Skills. And at the end of it, there's a slide when I'm talking about objections, rebuttals, and it's a picture of the Beatles. And I always ask the audience, why do you think there's a picture of the Beatles in this training program? And they all go, we don't know. It's because they're the greatest freaking rock and roll band that ever lived.
You rock out, my friend. Thanks for coming today. So enjoyed having you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. It's always a pleasure.